Sand. It's everywhere, right? It's the one thing we think of as totally common, simple, maybe even boring. But what if I told you that inside these tiny, ordinary grains is the secret story of a technological revolution, one that literally defines the world we live in? Okay, let's get into it, because this whole story, it starts with an accident.
I know it sounds a little crazy, but the journey from a simple beach fire to the very screen in your hand is one of the most incredible and honestly overlooked stories in all of human history. It's a story of fire, of secrets, and of a material that, when you get right down to it, probably shouldn't even exist. Long before we humans ever figured out how to make glass, the Earth was already doing it, and in its most violent and chaotic moments. This wasn't a calm, planned-out discovery. It was an encounter with a material born from pure, raw power.
I mean, just think about the sheer forces we're talking about here. The unimaginable heat of a volcano creating that slick black obsidian. The cosmic shockwave of a meteorite slamming into the Earth, forging these little glassy tektites. Or maybe my favorite, a bolt of lightning hitting a beach and searing the sand into a hollow, brittle tube of glass called a fulgurite. Nature was showing us all along that sand could become something else entirely, a stone made of fire.
So the story goes, and we get this from the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, that we first copied nature by total accident. Some Phoenician sailors are shipwrecked. They need to cook, so they build a fire on a sandy beach. To hold up their cooking pots, they grab a few blocks of natron from their cargo, which is basically a type of salt. The fire gets really hot, the sand and natron melt together, and when they wake up in the morning, they find this weird, hard, jewel-like stuff in the ashes. They had stumbled onto the secret.
And right here, this is our first big wait, what moment. Because the stuff they created, what we all call glass, is just bizarre, physically speaking. On one side, you've got a crystal. Its atoms are all locked into this perfect, repeating, orderly pattern, a true solid. But then you look at glass. Its atoms are a complete jumble, a chaotic mess, basically frozen in place, like a liquid that got stopped in its tracks.
Yep, you heard that right. Glass is technically a supercooled liquid. It cools down so fast that its atoms just don't have time to line up and get into their proper solid formation. So the glass in your window, on a molecular level, is really just a snapshot of liquid chaos trapped in time.
You know, for thousands of years, the goal wasn't to make glass clear, it was the exact opposite. If your glass came out clear, you'd probably failed. The very first glass makers in Mesopotamia and Egypt were actually trying to create cheap knockoffs of precious stones. This wasn't about looking through something, it was about making jewelry and fancy little bottles that looked like they were carved from turquoise or lapis lazuli, but for a tiny fraction of the cost.
So this is the central mystery, isn't it? How did a material that was invented to be a colorful fake, a substitute for something valuable, somehow transform into the most essential transparent material we have? Well, to get there, first, the secret had to be lost completely.
See, this knowledge of glassmaking was an incredibly fragile thing. It flourished in the great empires of the Bronze Age, passed down from a master to an apprentice, but when those empires started to crumble, the secret crumbled right along with them.
This timeline shows it all. For centuries, you have this vibrant industry growing in Mesopotamia and Egypt, making these beautiful, complex things. But then, right around the 12th century BCE, during this massive event called the Bronze Age collapse that took down entire civilizations, it all just stops. The archaeological record, it just goes silent.
I mean, think about that. For 400 years, an entire dark age for this craft, the incredible technology to turn sand into a jewel was just gone. It was a secret that humanity had to learn, lose, and then painstakingly figure out all over again.
And when it came back, oh boy, it came back with a vengeance. The rediscovery wasn't just a simple revival, it was a full-blown revolution, all thanks to one single brilliant invention.
Before this big moment, making any kind of glass vessel was just brutally slow and expensive. You had to make a core out of clay and dung, and then drip and trail molten glass all over it. Then when it cooled, you had to scrape the core out. It took hours just to make one tiny bottle. It was a luxury good, plain and simple.
This was the game changer. Around 50 BC, some brilliant craftsmen on the Syro-Palestinian coast figured out that you could just dip a hollow tube into molten glass and inflate it, like a bubble. It was the blowpipe. And this one simple tool, it changed everything.
I mean, look at this. The difference in efficiency was just staggering. What once took hours of meticulous, painful labor could now be done in less than a minute. This was the birth of mass-produced glass,
The wall between glass and the common person was about to be shattered. And of course, the Romans, with their genius for engineering and huge trade networks, took the blowpipe and just ran with it. All of a sudden, glass wasn't just for pharaohs anymore. It was for soldiers, merchants, homeowners. They made cups, jars, jugs, even the very first crude window panes for their bathhouses. A luxury had become a utility. And now, for our second wait, what moment. This story shows you just how disruptive people thought this new material was. A craftsman supposedly shows up and presents Emperor Tiberius with a bowl made of a new, unbreakable kind of glass. And instead of getting a reward, Tiberius has him executed on the spot. Why? He was terrified that this new material was so revolutionary it would make gold worthless and totally upend the Roman economy. The potential of glass was now so big it was seen as a threat to the world order. That explosion of glass in the Roman world really set the stage for its final and most invisible transformation. It went from a material everyone could see and hold to one that works best when you can't see it at all.
And this is where the whole purpose of glass just completely flips on its head. The ancient goal was opacity, making glass look like a solid, colorful stone. But the modern goal, it's perfect transparency, perfect invisibility. We want to look through glass, not at it. And in one critical way, we've achieved that goal so perfectly that most of us don't even know it's there.
And here it is, our final wait, what moment. Every text you send, every dollar you spend online, every single bit of data that makes up this explainer right now is traveling as pulses of light through impossibly thin, perfectly pure threads of glass. Fiber optics. The physical backbone of the internet isn't copper or silicon. It's made of sand. What an incredible journey, right? You start with a strange, chaotic liquid that's frozen in time. It becomes a cheap substitute for jewels, then a revolutionary commodity that changed daily life, all before becoming the invisible web that connects all of humanity. We really did unlock the secret hidden inside sand.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? We mastered this one common material and it changed the world in ways no one could have ever predicted. What other simple things that we see every day are just sitting there, waiting for their own revolution?